Your beautiful quilt is now completed and ready to go to the long ironer. But now you have some important decisions to make. And one of the decisions that you have to make that's very important is what quilting you want on the top to secure those 3 layers together so that they'll last for many, many years and it will be a beautiful quilt. This quilting is called edge-to-edge quilting or pantographs. And today, the video we're going to be doing is on how to select the correct pantograph for your quilt so that everything will be working beautifully. This is a very creative and fun process, and I hope you'll enjoy this video. And if you do, give me a thumbs up, comment. But let's get started on pantographs and edge-to-edge quilting. My history with quilting began over 50 years ago, but it began with me making quilts or making projects and having someone else quilt them for me. Gradually, I progressed through the years. I learned how to do a little bit of hand quilting. Then I learned how to quilt with my sewing machine. Finally, I purchased a long arm and I learned how to long arm just freehand and do that. But now, after 26 years, I am officially a long arm quilter who uses digitized patterns, who quilts edge to edge, and who quilts for other people using the selected patterns that they have come up with for their quilt. So my progression has been very creative, it's been long, and it's certainly been an enjoyable process. So now let's talk about the 5 questions that I ask people when they bring me a quilt and they're getting ready for me to do the quilting for them. The first question I usually ask a customer when they bring me a quilt is, do you want minimal quilting? And by minimal quilting, I mean a meandering quilting stitch or what's called a stipple, which is just an all-over pattern that just has no formal design to it at all. But it does keep those 3 pieces of quilt together, but it doesn't compete with that beautiful quilt top that has been so tirelessly put together and is absolutely beautiful. We don't want to distract from that lovely, lovely quilt. So sometimes minimal quilting is what's best for a person's quilt. The next way that people often decide how they want their quilt quilted is around a theme. A lot of times I will see quilts come in that have special fabrics or that have an overall theme of something, like a winter scene, a baby quilt that has lots of baby pictures on it, animals, flowers. There's all kinds of different themes that people can have that they may choose to also replicate in their quilt into the quilting. There are so many patterns on the market for these kinds of things. So if you want to stay with your theme in the quilting, that is an option that you should consider also when you're deciding on what pantograph or edge-to-edge quilting can be on your lovely quilt. It's a fun thing to do, and it's also a fun selection for people to make when they're choosing their patterns. We're now up to number 3 on our choices of things that you can put on your quilt. And this is one of my favorites. It's geometric quilting, or shapes like circles, diamonds, rectangles, all kinds of different shapes, and then combined together into those. So you might have a quilt that has a lot of geometric lines to it anyway, and so you might want to copy some of those into the quilting that goes into your quilt or the pantograph. Or if you're not comfortable with that, you might want to completely stay away from it. But this is really a fun area, and it does complement quilts so much when we put a geometric pattern onto your quilt. It just helps it come alive, and it's really a beautiful product. The next way that we determine what might go on a quilt is to look at the type of quilt that you've made and the fabrics that have gone into it. And some examples of that would be 30s fabrics, reproduction fabrics, period fabrics, formal fabrics versus just very eclectic run-of-the-mill fabrics. But those sometimes will require a different pattern. You want things to match. You don't want to put a modern quilting pattern with a very formal quilt. And so these are choices that need to be considered when you're doing this. And it is important that you discuss this. If you have needs, you should discuss this very carefully with your longarm quilter to make sure you're pleased with the final product. Many times I'll have quilters say to me, I saw a quilt and I loved the quilting that was on that. What they're really saying to me is that they would like to replicate the quilting that they have seen on another item and put it on their quilt so that it's the same pattern. It's the same edge-to-edge pattern or pantograph. This is fine. This is a perfect way to get something that you know you like and that will please you when the end product is there. Oftentimes, you'll hear this kind of comment when someone has seen something in a quilt shop, or they have seen something online, or one of their friends may have a quilt that was quilted a certain way. Those pantographs are very, very easy to find, and if you have a picture or can draw out the idea of how that looks, your longarm quilter can probably find a pantograph that's either similar or the exact one so that you get exactly what you want on that quilt. Copycatting is allowed. We love to make our customers happy. Today we've gone through 5 nice ways to decide on a pantograph or edge-to-edge quilting. You can mix some of those together even to decide on your pantograph. There are just a couple of other considerations that would be helpful to you as you're making this decision. Ask yourself, who is this quilt for? Where will this quilt be used? How much use will it get? Those are important items to think about too. Will this be for grandma, or will this be for a boy going off to college? So consider the gender of the person, the age of the person, the usage of the quilt, and that will help you in your decision-making process also. Make it perfect for the recipient that it's going to. The other thing is, if you're not comfortable with making these decisions on your own, it's always a wonderful thing to consult with other quilters, or more importantly, to consult with your longarm quilter on a choice of a pantograph that will be really good for your quilt. You want this to be just exactly what you want in the end. And consulting and discussing it with your longarm quilter is always, always a good idea. And longarm quilters welcome that kind of a discussion. So feel free to do that. We've been through a lot today. Always appreciate your thumbs up, appreciate subscribers, and I'm very thankful when you share comments and suggestions so that I have ideas for future films and future ideas. Thanks, I've enjoyed being with you.